right. Well, welcome everyone to Think Like an Herbalist. We have a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to talk about a lot of different patterns that involve health. And as you can see, a big part of this is going to involve the honeybee, which is Apis mellifera, not to be confused with some other bees. But yeah, don't take anything. The disclaimer, the big one, the legal thing, especially in today's society, is if you do choose to work with herbs, you're doing it at your own risk. If you do choose to work with bees, definitely at your own risk. We'll get into all the different ways you can do that in this presentation, but you are your own master. So, okay, so I jumped into all of that before you probably even knew who I was. So my name is Amber Hargroder. I am an author. I do a lot of poetry stuff that's about nature and healing. Been doing herbalism for a while, but if we're looking for like, where's the clout? I did study herbalism with Marisha Mirnowska, who's a big intuitive herbalist. Then I did a honeybee apprenticeship with Ariella Daly, who, if you're interested in anything to do with bees, mysticism, apitherapy, she's amazing. Really love her. I'm certified in holistic herbalism. I'm also circadian certified. Carrie Bennett is just amazing. I was so happy to be mentored by her. And then I'm currently in a 3-year program with Matthew Wood, who's like a top dog in herbalism. He's kind of like a clinical shaman. I don't know if he would describe himself that way, but he really goes back to the roots of healing and gives like a broad survey perspective and also a clinical way to practice herbalism. So you can follow me on Instagram. I haven't posted anything in a while, but that's going to change soon. And my website is amberhargroder.com if you're interested in more. So, okay, right out of the gate, there are 3 different healing traditions we need to cover, and you may have experienced all of these at different points in time. But the first one we're going to talk about is the scientific tradition. Now, this is the definition given by Susan Weed, who's an amazing herbalist. She broke this down, and she's kind of the mother of this theory. But basically, the scientific tradition is what we think of as allopathic medicine. Like healing is fixing. You're a car, you broke down, we need to change out that carburetor. We're going to give you an oil change, a little tune up. That's kind of how they see the body, is in this scientific perspective. You are a machine. You're constantly at war against something. Maybe it's cancer, autoimmune disease, Lyme disease. You got to fight it. And often the weapon is an odorless, tasteless drug or an injectable or something like that. A lot of the theories that come from the scientific tradition did actually come from a war setting. So the war theaters of especially World War II, if you look at the history of the blood industry, that's where a lot of that came from. So scientific, we're all familiar with this. This is like the status quo, right? Well, then we go into more alternative healing methods, and that brings us to the heroic tradition. These are pretty much 90% of the people on X who are promoting some sort of health program. It's you are dirty, you need to detox, you need supplements, you need to sweat it out, work it out, like you have to suffer. That's like the big thing. They're like, suck it up, just get it done. I remember when I first kind of fell into the whole of the heroic tradition, it was a lot of like colonics, raw veganism. Yeah, it was just like purge all the time. Like you've been very naughty and you got to get all the dirtiness out. A little puritanical, I guess, but so it's going to be complex, difficult, expensive, and usually the person who's leading with this is a health guru. So they're going to dress kind of funky or have something about them that puts them as they're going to save you. Susan Weed, God bless her as an herbalist, is like, that's not the way to health. This is horrible. Like you're torturing yourself. These people are not about redox before you detox. They're like purge. So the wise woman tradition, which is, we're going into herbalism now, healing is nourishment. So this is all about redox and letting your body heal itself. You are in a constant state of transformation. The most powerful healer is yourself. You're interconnected with the entire web of life. And you have the ability to heal. You don't need a guru to save you. You can actually heal yourself through nourishing herbs, through increasing nutrition in your diet, through just chilling out. You don't have to kill yourself to be healthy, is pretty much what she says. And wild plants are your green allies, and they're going to support you with the optimum nourishment. And let's see if it's on this next slide. Well, to end with Susan Weed, her big thing is, instead of torturing yourself, let's just go play in the garden. Let's go sit in the garden. And that seems very much in alignment with quantum biology principles, because we want to be outside. It's just now you're outside with friends. So what is an herbalist? It's the idea that you can't heal with nature unless you think like nature. And nature has very specific sets of laws that it follows. The people who kind of go with the laws of nature are considered vitalists, that you have a vital force. Like, what is the thing that makes a seed sprout? What is that vital force? You have that inherently in you. And this is the exact opposite of the machine perspective. You're a broken machine. You're like an old car that we got to fix. You got to replace your parts every couple of months, like that kind of thing. If I'm based in South Louisiana, there's a lot of South Louisiana stuff behind me, but we in the South have something called the Traiteur. It's a Southern faith healer, and that's kind of the epitome of vital force. They believe that God is working through them to help someone else inspire their vital force to come back into power or action to heal. That's just one example, but there's lots of people, like from shamans to herbalists to, different people working in the alternative health space who believe in this vital force that regenerates the body. It's like regenerative self-care by nurturing this vital force inside of you. And from my perspective, I believe that the core element of that is your structured water, that is the container that holds your vital force. Now, every herbalist practices differently. So there's a saying called "let 1,000 flowers bloom." Everyone has different ways of practicing. Everyone has different herbs that they love. When I see an herb that I know really well, it just fills me with joy, because it's, them, like you've worked with them so much. You've seen them do magical things. And there was an Italian herbalist who said that herbs work by magic. They can work by no other way. And throughout this presentation, we're going to see that the magic is actually your cellular water and what's happening at the cellular level. That is where magic is taking place. But every herbalist has a different way to get to it. And even though we're going to cover a lot of herbs in this presentation, one thing I want you to know is that the best healers throughout history maybe worked with 1 to 3 herbs that they knew really well and that they just loved. I mean, Juliet of the Herbs is a great documentary on YouTube. She was like the grandmother of American herbalism in a way. She's got a funky last name that I can't pronounce right now. So just Juliet of the Herbs. But she mostly just worked with rosemary. And that's an herb we all see pretty frequently. And rosemary is an amazing healing medicinal plant. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't have to know every herb. You don't have to have like a Rolodex of herbs. Just find the ones that really resonate with you and just really get to know them and work with them as like you're playing in the garden. There's no pressure that it has to, do something heroic. Also in this presentation, we're going to talk about the art of the honeybee. The honeybees are really the original herbalist. Apis mellifera is not native to North America. They were brought here by the Catholics because it used to be that the only candles that could be burned in mass were made out of beeswax. They're a lot more lax on that today. But so what we have is we have the honeybee from the Mediterranean region. These products of the honeybee are incredibly medicinal, and we're going to compare that to quantum biology and see what is needed for you in different types of situations. Okay, so what we all have in common, if you're in this community, you probably are already familiar with this. We all have mitochondria. ATP is really only accounting for 20% of the energy to run a cell. The rest of it is cellular water. In the quantum community, we talk a lot about structured water and easy zone, but that's the battery. So we are looking to charge that battery, learning how the bees operate to compare it to ourselves, and also learning how herbs affect the water in your body and different dysfunctions that can be happening with your tissues and that cellular water. But keep in mind that every single vibration, memory, experience, thought, and frequency is determining the structure of your water. And what we're going to talk about today is how bees and plants also affect that structure and bring you into a better vibrational health. All right, so just really quick, there's 3 constitutions. We can split this in a number of ways, but in Ayurvedic medicine, again, very ancient tradition, we're looking at how water is filtered through the body through different lenses. And in this particular lens, there's 3 different types of builds. So you have the Vata person, they're very thin, they're very sensitive to everything. Like they don't have any buffer. They tend to dry out, they tend to have wasting conditions, lots of tension, they don't hold on to nutrition very well. So they're represented by like wind. They're very sensitive to wind and changes and abrupt things. Then you have Pitta, which is your medium build. These are your more athletic people, the people who just get muscle for no reason. Like they sit around all day, yet they have a 6-pack. It's like, how did you do that? Those are the fire people. But they are often so busy. They're the workaholics, people who power through, very results oriented. They're the ones who end up getting like high histamine, like histamine problems, autoimmune conditions, accidents, that kind of thing. So watch out for that. But their water tends to run hot, and that hotness is problematic. Then we have Kapha, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's the thick build. These are like the people who you would say are big boned. They're sturdy. They're kind of slow to move. They're a little bit like a mountain. They tend to overeat. They can fall ill because they don't exercise. And yeah, so we've got here very light, very fiery, very earthy. So just keep in mind, like, which bucket do you fall into? What type of things are you more susceptible to? Yeah, so if you have more of a wind-like constitution, you're more likely to dry out. Fire, you're more likely to burn up or burn out. Kapha, you're going to get like cold, waterlogged, damp, and heavy because there's just not enough movement going on. And in this picture up here, you'll see this is a queen bee. So you see that her body is enormous compared to the little worker bee right here. And we're just going to keep that little nugget for later. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about for the core of the rest of this discussion are what's called the 6 tissue states. This goes all the way back to Plato and Aristotle. Originally, it was 4 tissue states. It's now branched out into 6. Damp has been separated into 2 different segments, which we'll talk about. You can have multiples of these. You can have a cold tissue state that's actually running hot because you've been cold for so long, you've got putrefaction going on and bacteria is causing heat. You can be wind is tension. You can have any of these and also have tension. You can be dried out and that causes heat. You can be stagnant and then that causes heat. So these are all interrelated. It's very, very rare for someone just to have one tissue state. It's you're going to have multiples. And then I have here, when in doubt, use stinging nettles. Stinging nettles is like, it's the herb that it'll fix pretty much anything. There's a saying, there's an old Irish saying that if you have an old horse that you want to sell, feed it stinging nettle seeds for a week and it'll look young and healthy again so you can sell it. Like that's a terrible business practice, but it just goes to show what stinging nettles can do for you. But before we dive into these tissue states, let's see, how do I get back to the questions? I know some had popped up. Let me see.
I think we were just commenting on the types.
Yeah.
My husband's the middle one, the fire.
Oh, great. Okay.
And then I'm the thick one.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not missing any important questions.
And I'll make sure, like, if anything pops up, I'll ping you.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Well, now I've really done it because I can't get back to my presentation. There we go. Okay. All right. Everyone can see the screen? Yes? I can't see the chat, so.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the metaphor we're working through today, or working with, is the image of the beehive. So just imagine that every beehive is a cell, And every bee within that hive is a mitochondria. So honey then becomes our structured water within the cell. And what a lot of people don't realize, so I've got a piece of honeycomb here. What a lot of people don't realize is, well, honey would only be here in this lighter region. This is like more brood. So these are baby bees in the darker spots. But every single cell in honeycomb is like a library book. It tells the bees a ton of information about their environment, the plants that they're getting food from, nectar from. It tells them about minerals in the landscape. So we tend to eat honey where we just like crush this comb and mix all the honey together. But to a bee, this is extremely organized. It is a compendium of knowledge. And when you think about it, so is the human body. Every single bit of structured water in your body has some sort of knowledge about your environment, how you're handling that environment, your stress levels, and your overall health. And so for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to be matching tissue states to bee medicines to really drive the message home as to what aspect of the hive pairs with different dysfunctions in the body on a physical level. So structured water, easy zone. This shouldn't be new to anybody here. You've got your exclusion zone water, your bulk water, and a lot of that determines your tissue state. Whether you, in most of the cases, if you have proper easy zone, you're not going to have these dysfunctions. But we're looking at how the easy zone is affected to present in a different type of cellular dysfunction. Okay, so our first one, we're going to start with the damps because damps are kind of complicated. So basically, if you have damp stagnation, you have too much bulk water that's stuck. This would be, all the signs that you need lymphatic drainage. You're puffy in your face, you're puffy in your ankles, like puffy in general, like your rings don't fit or you take them off and your fingers are swollen. Those would all be indications of damp stagnation. Your structured water is not able to detox anything. It becomes swampy in your body, kind of like this picture. You're going to see chronic skin eruptions, like especially the deep cystic acne. A lot of women get that too, like around their hormonal regions, because they're not able to detox. Their liver isn't working at full capacity. You have thick, heavy, adhesive mucus. Like the mucus in your body is very sticky. You might see it coming out your nose. You might see it in your stool. You just have a lot of like that glue that's like holding gunk into your body. That's going to result in dull, achy pains, like your joints always hurt. It's hard to get moving. It's kind of the pain where it's like when you start walking, you feel better. But then if you start sitting again, you're just like, just stuck. Easy to get a hangover with this because your liver and lymphatic system are already overloaded. So if you're the type of person that you have one glass of wine and then you have a horrible hangover the next day, you might want to look at damp stagnation. You're going to see, if you look at your tongue, so your tongue is the window to what's happening with the tissues in your body. If you look at your tongue and it's puffy, it's kind of like, it'll probably have a white coating, maybe even a yellow coating. Those are all indications of damp stagnation. If you've got scalloping on the edge from your tongue pushing against the edges of your teeth, again, you got damp stagnation. Constipation is a big one, undigested food and stool. I don't know if that applies to corn, but sluggish, fatigued, you just feel terrible. That's damp stagnation. So in the hive, how bees deal with damp stagnation is something called propolis. And this is a little ball of propolis right here, which isn't really the best way to present this, but this is like bee glue. I've just kind of rolled it all together. It has a very sharp smell. So it's like tree resins that have been mixed with pollen and a lot of plant material, and it forms propolis. And of course, it's not going to look like this in the hive. It's going to look more like this edge, if y'all can see this. There's like this dark line here. If you look at the frame, there's like bee glue all up there. That's propolis. And what the bees do is this seals off the hive. So like ants can't get in. Hive beetles is a totally different issue. They're the devil. But propolis seals it off, and it also moves water around the hive. You don't want the hive to have too much water. Something to keep in mind is when bees are actually making honey, it's nectar but they kind of do this whole chain. Everybody gets it for a little bit and they chew it, and then they're going to put it into a cell, and then they're going to take their wings and flap their wings, and they're going to work like an Excalibur dehydrator to get all the water content out of that honey. Well, where does that water go? The propolis will direct that bulk water out of the hive because you don't want condensation. So propolis is made of like 50% resin, 30% wax. You got some essential oils in there, pollen. No two batches are alike because it's sourced from material in your region at the time it was harvested. So they're like the OG hipsters too. They went all seasonal all the time. But it's antibacterial, microbial, fungal, parasite. It actually is a specific for dust and mold. So if you've had problems with mold, which would be another issue, that damp stagnation would hold on to that mold toxicity, you're going to want to work with propolis. And I don't have the tincture on me right now. I've traveled with it. I don't know what I did with it. But Pixie Honey has a propolis honey liqueur. So if you're into that, you can kind of see like the color, but it just preserves the propolis. So you get the full medicinal effect of freshness. And that's Pixie Honey, Pixie Mead out of Portland, Oregon. But this is an amazing medicine. I can't really say medicine, but it's an amazing product from the hive. And if you have damp stagnation, it might be something that you can experiment with. For the tincture, it's 1 to 3 drops directly on the tongue. It is very strong, so keep that in mind. But when we look at circadian rhythms and quantum biology, if you have damp stagnation, what should you be focused on? There's a lot of things within the quantum realm that can help you build structured water, and that's going to move that damp stagnation out. But in both cases of damp, sunlight is your friend. You want to get sunlight on your body because it's going to strengthen your tissues, which we're going to get into in a second, but it's also going to help dry that dampness. But you need to get your electrons. You need to increase your electrical spin in your body. We all know that Wi-Fi, cell phone radiation, artificial light, all of that stuff is just destroying your structured water, but a sedentary lifestyle is also influencing that dampness. So you don't want to just be stagnant yourself. You want to get moving. Infrared sauna, cold plunges, red light, all the good stuff. That's all helpful. Okay, so working with herbs is extremely easy. Finding the herb you need to work with is very hard. So here's the thing. If you have damp stagnation, you should absolutely be doing lymphatic drainage, which is not, of course, an herbal thing, but there are herbs that work on the lymph. Red clover is an amazing lymphatic tonic. It'll work. It even gets rid of like cysts. It's known for getting rid of cysts. So if you've got like a cyst problem, you might want to work with red clover. Put a little bit of peppermint in your tea and it kind of tastes like a Lipton tea. Delicious. We got stinging nettles, which is salty minerally. It's going to make your water more intelligent so you get more structure, less bulk. But your main friends are going to be these bitter herbs. Burdock root and dandelion root you can put together. They're both big friends of the liver. If you have a type of tongue where you have a coating, but it looks like someone's ripped off pieces of it, like you ever try to rip a label off of a glass jar and there's like pieces of it still? If your tongue coating looks like that, you need to work with dandelion root. You can do tincture, you can do, make a tea. It is a root, so you kind of want to boil it. That's called a decoction. And then burdock root, the same thing. Burdock root you can get at pretty much any Asian grocery store. You can make broths with it. It's amazing. Alfalfa sprouts are okay, but I would look at working with alfalfa as an herb and make a tea with it. Yellow dock is really going to get the bowel moving. So if you have constipation, intermittent with diarrhea, like you just can't get like waste out, yellow dock could help with that. So these are some more friends. Just to go back to burdock. Burdock is really a specific for pain in the lower bones. So it's also called the hairdresser's herb. So if you're on your feet a lot and you've got a lot of pain in your lower body, burdock would be a good friend for you. Let's see. Who else have we not talked about? Oregon grapefruit, great for the liver. You can get that as a tincture. Pokebush, definitely a tincture, low dose. Chickweed comes out in the spring. It's an amazing salad green. It's very delicate. You can harvest it in your yard. It's super tiny, low to the ground. It spreads out like a mat, but it has these special saponins in it that help clean out the body. So it's like a detoxification with the constituents in that plant. So in the spring, when you're thinking spring cleaning, when you see chickweed, just eat that raw. Don't buy dried chickweed. You can get it from Mountain Rose Herbs, but it's useless. Once it's dried, it's lost all medicinal benefit. So you can preserve it in ferments. You can freeze it in like ice cubes. You can make tinctures with it and it'll still have its medicinal properties. But if you have damp stagnation, this is an easy herb to forage for in the spring. It grows pretty much everywhere in North America. It's delicious. And I use it on like sandwiches, salads, all that. Dandelion we've covered. Red clover, good lymphatic detoxification herb. Stinging nettles, like one of the best.
So Amber, I just to understand, like, so really chickweed out of all of those is the ones that you have to eat fresh. Like, are the other ones you recommend like okay for teas and tinctures?
Yeah, like nettles. I mean, I grow nettles in my garden, so I can work with it fresh as a pot green. So as opposed to spinach, any recipe that has spinach in it, you can replace with nettles, but dried nettles, you can still make an amazing tea with. Chickweed is one of the few. It has this very rare chemical makeup that once it's dried, it's just, there's no point.
Yeah,
So,
that's really
uh,
helpful to know. Yeah.
yeah, and when I was first studying herbalism, I bought a pound of dried chickweed and I was like, why do I not like this? Like I like the fresh chickweed. And then I was talking to an herbalist from New York, and sure enough, like once you dry it, no, it's done.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the few herbs I know that that's true for. Trying to think of who else. I know there's another one, but I can't think of who they are. But yeah, chickweed is amazing. You just really it's probably growing in your yard in the spring, to be honest. You probably just never saw it or looked for it. It usually grows next to cleavers, which is also another lymphatic cleansing herb. And that's like that long, sticky plant. It's got it's like Velcro. It sticks to you, it breaks apart really easily. I find that when cleavers are near, chickweed is right there. So that's, food for thought if you're
Yeah.
into wild foraging. And
Yes.
Pascal Bauder is an amazing fermentation. I don't know, is he a chef? I don't know what to call him. A fermentation expert, and he works with a lot of wild weeds. So if you're interested in preserving wild weeds that you forage, I would look at his cookbooks or follow him on Instagram. It's Pascal Bauder, and it's like wild foods is what he really specializes in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next damp we're going to talk about is relaxation. This is basically cellular erosion. The tissues have been, a lot of the times this happens because you had so much tension. You were so stressed out for the longest time that the tissues were really tense and then they just kind of caved and they just like, they can't hold anything anymore. Like they put up a good fight and then they just collapsed. Kind of like the levee in New Orleans. So it's the integrity of the cell has just failed. So what happens here is the bulk water that was stuck is now just like flowing everywhere. So you laugh and snot comes out. You have to urinate constantly. You're constantly sweating. You're just losing fluids like crazy and you feel dehydrated, but you don't look necessarily dehydrated. Like you're just like, I'm so thirsty. Why does nothing satiate my thirst? And it's because your cells can't hold the water anymore. So before, usually you'll have damp stagnation first, and then the levees break, and then you have damp relaxation. It all just kind of flows out. And so you'll go from not being able to sweat to sweating all the time. You'll go, here, everything's just loose. Frequent urination, diarrhea. You've got thin blood even. You've got clear mucus more often than not. It'll be thin and dilute. You might have streamers down your tongue, like you'll stick out your tongue and you'll just see like a river down the sides of it. That's damp relaxation. Or you just have a lot of spit in your mouth. That's, again, this. As things get colder, you're going to start seeing white mucus. Basically, like cellular function is slowing down to the point that things have gotten cold. And we'll get to cold. That's going to be one of the last tissue states we talk about. But you're going to start feeling pale, cool, clammy. This is the case of leaky gut. Carrie Bennett was actually the one that told me, like, if you have leaky gut, you need to go get sunlight on your abdomen. Well, this makes sense because, to go back to the ancient world, the ancient Egyptians spent so much time in the sun that their enemies in battle said that their bones couldn't be broken. Like, you couldn't even bash in their skull because they had the shaved head that was always in the sun, and it was so hard you couldn't bash it, which sounds like a terrible example, but I want you to think about the integrity of your tissues. So if your tissues are weak and they can no longer hold on to fluids, you need sunlight to regenerate those tissues and make them strong again. In this particular case, because you've just got minerals flowing out of you like crazy, they're ending up in weird little pockets. If you ever see soil that is eroded, you see that it forms its own little drainage lines. Well, what's happening is, like, you can take all the Quinton minerals in the world, but those minerals are not being evenly distributed and they're not being absorbed by the body. So you're ending up with little bony growths and mineral deposits in weird ways. And we don't like mineral deposits because that's when you start getting kidney stones, gallbladder stones, like that stuff that's just not being filtered out. It's ending up in the wrong place and it's getting stuck. So gout, great example of that. So many young people are getting gout now because they've got damp relaxation. You're going to have low energy, low immunity. You catch everything. You'll have swollen glands. Both of these cases call for lymphatic drainage and like moving. I like rebounders a lot for lymphatics, but you're still going to see like a moist tongue. But again, look for those streamers, look for a coating. You might be able to scrape the coating off of your tongue, but it's probably going to be white yellow. And it's going to be very wet. If someone's complaining that you're a very wet kisser, look at damp relaxation. Okay, so the bees. We've got pollen. I had pollen around here somewhere. I thought I did. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Okay. So you're gonna see pollen like this. These are your little golden coins of mineral content. So again, we need minerals because it makes water intelligent. This is a great supplement. However, most people are using this wrong. So when bees make pollen and feed it to the baby bees, their pips, they ferment it first. So they use their gut enzymes to ferment the pollen, then they eat it. So this has to kind of be broken down. So that's why it's really good on like yogurt or any type of fermentation, because the acidity in that fermentation is going to break this down. And you're going to actually be able to get the nutrients from the pollen as opposed to just eating pollen. Try to get it from a local area. If you're a beekeeper, never feed your bees this. That's not good. But these are really good for gut health. You just need to make sure that they have some sort of fermentation process incorporated in so you get the nutrients from it. It does contain a light signature of the plants that it came from. So when bees go from flower to flower, they've got these little hairs on them, which I wish we could go back to the first slide, but they have these little hairs all over their bodies. So when they go into the flower to get the nectar, they're rolling in pollen, and then they clean themselves and they push the pollen down onto their legs into these little pollen pockets. And then they have, it looks like they're wearing like little pollen pants, and they go back to the hive. And the way that this is harvested is you put a pollen catcher at the door of the hive. So when they go through the door, these things fall off. Not all of it, like a third of it falls off. So then we get it. But yeah, it's a really great, easy to acquire product. And it's not bad for the bees that you take it. Very high in B vitamin complex. If you look at the underside of your tongue, like you're like under there, and you see these like icicles, like these long bits of tissue, that could indicate that you have a vitamin B deficiency. So pollen might be a really good option for you. These do improve fertility. If someone is trying to get pregnant, pollen would be a really good supplement. It helps you actually hold on to more hydration, stimulates regeneration of tissue, really good for hormonal imbalances. It's just all around a delicious supplement that you can add to pretty much anything. And this kind of mirrors what we already talked about in quantum, where you need minerals in your water. You can do Soleil water, you can do Quinton, Aussie trace minerals, you can soak in Epsom salt. Like, the world is your oyster. Okay, so let's say you've got damp relaxation. What are the herbs you need to work with? Right now, if you have this tissue state, you're too open. Everything's flowing out of you. You need to close it. So, you're looking for herbs that make you like pucker, like things that are like, like a tightening taste. You need that kind of stuff. So that's going to be acidic and warming. Acidic herbs like red raspberry leaf, things that make your mouth feel kind of dry, would be astringent. Things that you eat it like a watermelon rind or something, like you eat it and it dries out your mouth. That's what it's doing to your tissues. And you kind of need that dryness to protect the barriers of the tissues that have now become too weak to hold on. Nettles can be good for this, but nettles is also very drying. So that's a perk here, but if you on it for too long, you can start to get too dry. So like try like 30 days of nettles before you're like, I'm gonna drink this every day for the rest of my life. And then you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, where'd all these wrinkles come from? It's because you're dehydrated. So, but wild geranium grows everywhere. You'll find it in ditches around the world. It is the second most astringent plant. Oak would be the most astringent. Blackberry leaf is really good. Look for your berry leaves. Those are great. Sage, if your skin looks like sage, that's more of the dry tissue state, but it helps women regulate their water in their body. Okay. So just a few friends here. So agrimony is really for tension that causes relaxation. We'll talk about agrimony in a little bit, but this would be a really good one for people who they were so tense that they just deflated. Ladies' mantle is great for prolapse, especially uterine prolapse. St. John's wort does not play well with pharmaceuticals. So if you are on any type of pharmaceutical, I would not recommend St. John's wort, but it does help with these types of things because it holds the imprint of the sun. Horsetail is really good. Like when you have damp relaxation, your nails are weak, your hair is kind of falling out a little bit. Pollen helps with that too. Horsetail is a really great herb for that. We've talked about our berries. Let's see. Anybody else we're talking about? Rosemary, very warming stimulant, easy to acquire, easy to use. You can just like take a sprig of rosemary, put it in a French press, let it steep for like 15, 20 minutes. It's an aromatic. So anytime you work with the Italian, like the Mediterranean kitchen herbs, you want to cover it because the aromatic oils are the medicine. So you want to do that with rosemary. Rosemary also helps remove bad memories. And if that's causing your damp relaxation, like you went through a very stressful divorce or something, and now you're just deflated, rosemary would be a good ally for you. Okay, so we have dry, which will be the next one. Damp relaxation will eventually cause dry because you will run out of fluids. If you've got a bunch of vision problems, you're probably dry. Like you just don't have enough water, so it's warping your vision. Brain fog, that's another big one. You just don't have the cellular water to communicate. So it's affecting kind of like the head region. You're in deep need of nutrition. So you need nutritive tonics because you're in a state of atrophy. You're looking at dry, rough skin, eczema and psoriasis are common. Poor scalp health, again, losing hair because damp relaxation is leading you into this. And it's not the only way to get to dry, but just for what the direction we're going. So you have constipation, but instead of having mucus in your stool that's keeping it glued in there, it's hard and dry, so you can't get it out. That causes a lot of gas, poor digestion. You're going to look wrinkled and withered a little bit. Like if someone's like, oh man, you're looking rough, you're probably dehydrated, and that's the dry tissue state. Weak kidneys, you're going to have a lot of pain, your lower back, feeble pulse. When you look at the tongue, if you want to see if you're dry, it's going to look almost like a cat's tongue, like just kind of, well, obviously dry, but you're looking for cracks. You're looking for it to be kind of narrow. Like you feel that your mouth is dry. Like, you can look at a bunch of different tongues and one that's kind of withered away. Intuitively, you know that that's dryness. And then you're just going to be exhausted because you don't have any water, which is your battery. I mean, the water is holding the energy. If you don't have any energy, you don't have any water. So there's that. So we've kind of already talked about wax. Here we go again with our wax. So this is the thing in modern beekeeping is they're like, I'm helping the bees. I'm giving them a wax foundation, or I'm giving them a plastic foundation. And it's actually the body secretions. This wax, the bee is the only creature that makes its own home with its body. Like it produces everything itself. So this all starts out as these little tiny platelets of wax that they secrete from their abdominal wall. And they have to eat honey in order to produce wax. So the honey makes the wax to store the honey. It's kind of like a chicken and egg situation. But this is their fascia, basically. This is their connective tissue, and it vibrates all the sound throughout the hive. So based on where they are on this comb, they know where the queen is at any time. They just instinctively know where she is, and smell is a big part of that. Like a healthy hive should smell almost like freshly baked bread that's a little sweet. And they will build to fit the available space. Comb is built out first as like this little teardrop shape, and then they'll expand it out across the whole bar. This was an interesting situation that happened because of, we don't need to get into it. And basically they were looking to like for better ventilation because it's so hot and humid here in South Louisiana. But when they build fresh comb, it's a teardrop, and they build it at the top all the way down. But this is very warm when they're on it. It's resonant and pliable. Right now, if I just like tapped it too hard, it would shatter. So this is basically when we talk about fuzz in the body, fascia. When it's scar tissue, it's tight and brittle, and it doesn't have communication purposes. It can't hold water. When it's properly hydrated and pliable, then it looks like fuzz. So the fascia itself is like this weird Velcro looking thing that's, you want it to be gooey. And this is gooey when they first make it. And too much heat obviously melts it, but too much cold also makes it brittle and it breaks. So keep that in mind with your body too, with your fascia health. If it's stiff, you're not getting proper detoxification. You're not getting proper movement in the body. When it's too hot, it's just completely destroyed. So you want that happy medium. Now, wax as a medicinal property, I mean, we put it in salves. Never put a beeswax salve on top of a wound. Like, let's say I had a gash right here. Don't put it on the top, because that beeswax is going to seal it, and you're going to get bacteria in there. Like it's just going to get infected. You could put straight up honey on a wound, the open wound, and that's good, especially for burns. I didn't treat a burn on my finger, and now I'm probably gonna have a scar, but I should have put honey on it right away. But if you have a big gash, you want to put the salve on the sides of the gash, and then it will like sew itself back together. Blister, warts, burns, beeswax is good for that. A remedy for cough, people will put warm beeswax on like a linen cloth and put it on a chest as a compress, kind of like the OG like Vicks vapor rub, I guess. And then of course we have beeswax candles in the center of the hive. A paraffin candle actually puts toxins into your air environment, and leaves like nastiness on the walls, whereas a beeswax candle has a pure burn, and it's actually medicinal for your lungs to breathe in. The smell of a beeswax candle as it burns. So that's also really good. All right, so quantum, you should know this: vitamin D, sun exposure, filter, structure, salt. You don't want traumatized water from tap water. You want to have the highest quality living water that you can acquire, even if you're just swirling it before you drink it. I did have the Mayu swirl, and then I broke it. So, my bad. But I don't think it needs to be that complex where you're having it swirled all day long, but just, you want living water as best as you can acquire. And that should help with that hydration. In terms of herbs, you're looking for moist, salty, oily, and sweet. This is like the whole menu if you've got dry atrophy. Moist, obviously you want to soften those tissues. When you have soil, for instance, that's hydrophobic, You can put water on it and just runs right off. It doesn't get into the soil. It doesn't get to the root. But when you use things like Irish moss or marshmallow, slippery elm, and slippery elm is an endangered tree, so try to use marshmallow before you use slippery elm. But when you use these things, they soften the tissue so they can absorb more water. If you're so dry and atrophy, the water is just going to run right through. It's kind of similar to damp relaxation in that sense, but it's just that there's no absorption. The walls are so brittle and dry, they can't even take the water in. Salty is going to help build up that structured water. Oil, anytime you're dry, you need to think about, do I need water or do I need oil? A white coating on the tongue indicates too much water. A yellow coating indicates too much oil. That's not this particular tissue state, but you need to figure out, like, do I need oil or do I need more water? If water's not doing the trick, try your oils. Flaxseed oil, evening primrose, garden sage we mentioned. If your skin looks like a sage leaf, try to work with sage. Also really good for sore throat, cold and flu, that kind of thing. Burdock and dandelion are making another appearance. Oat straw is full of silica, so it's going to help with like dry, brittle nails, dry hair. Cleavers, we talked about a little bit. They are good lymphatic cleansers, but you really want to nurture your tissues so they can actually hold on to water. Nettles, you could use. If you need a salty herb, there's no one better than nettles. But because nettles is drying, if you feel that it's drying you out more, don't use it. Go to oil. So let's see, who did we talk about? I mean, marshmallow is just beautiful. And you can, the original marshmallow, before certain people took over companies and went for the cutting costs and cheapest options possible, they were originally made with marshmallow root. It was a demulcent thing for a sore throat. So, I mean, you can still make marshmallows with marshmallow root today. That's a fun little thing to do. Flax. Liriodendron, which is in the magnolia family, the tulip poplar tree. Beautiful tree, beloved by the bees, really good for atrophy, especially if you're like so dehydrated, you feel like you're starting to have like heart spasms. Like that would be a good herb. Let's see, slippery elm. I mean, just look at this leaf on the slippery elm. Like that just screams, we got some dryness issues. Like you're looking for the signature of, this is the signature of this treat's dryness. The plant is telling you, this is what I fix. Mullein, amazing, great for coughs, great for lung health. It's really good for like broken toes and stuff. It's really good for that kind of stuff. But if you're going to make a mullein tea, run it through like a coffee filter because it's got these little hairs that'll irritate you. And it's traditionally served with a lot of milk and honey and mullein. It'll be fun. Comfrey, just a word of caution, comfrey is very hydrating. I've talked about this on other podcasts. Comfrey does have a bad reputation for oxalates and liver health, but the way that particular study was run in a lab was kind of unfair to comfrey. All plants should be used in a holistic way. What they did was they took one constituent from comfrey, multiplied it by like 20 plus, and then fed it to rats, and the rats got liver cancer. But if you did the same thing with spinach, you'd probably get the same result. It's just when it comes to comfrey, if you're going to drink comfrey leaf tea, do not drink tea from the root. But if you're going to use the leaf, just, proceed with caution, just in case. If your liver is weak, maybe, there are other plants you can play with. Okay, ashwagandha, if you're dried out and it's kind of affecting sexual arousal, ashwagandha would probably be the one to go with. It's like known as, what does the name mean in Ayurvedic? It's something like the sweaty stallion. It's supposed to be really good for sexual prowess for men and women, incidentally. So, and that's a really good adaptogen. It doesn't really counteract with any pharmaceuticals that I know of. Okay, so we've covered damp and dry. Going into heat. This is the big problem with a lot of people in modern society. This is the excited tissue state. You need to calm everything down. Fiery people especially have too much heat. So there's too much activity going on at the cellular level. It's an exaggeration of activity. This decimates the structured water. I mean, if I put this out in the sun in 90-degree weather, this would melt. That's basically what's happening here, is that the integrity of the body is decimated by internal heat. You'll see this in the summertime when bees hang out on the outside of their hive because they're too hot. So they don't want to be in a box or in a tree, which is where they'd normally be living. Your cells can't escape the box that is you. So what happens as a result is that your structured water is just destroyed. So fever, especially if you constantly have fevers, swelling, redness, tenderness, sensitivity to pain, like anybody who's got redness on their skin, especially their face, they're constantly flushed. You've got heat excitation. Stick out your tongue. If it's red, that's a sign. You might just have red on the tip. That's from overthinking and too much mental activity. Red dots on your tongue. It's a sign of allergies. Autoimmune conditions, histamine overload. You will see this on the tongue. Just look for red. Look at somebody else's tongue for to see if you're like, is this really red? Usually go with your gut. Your intuitive nature will be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. But you're going to have congestion of capillaries. That'll be like your hands, the inner of your palm is very red. Your capillaries are breaking. That would be a hawthorn leaf and flower, or hawthorn berry would be a good specific for that. Restless, irritability, nervous excitement. These are the people that just like they buzzing. They're I don't want to say crazy, but they just got too much energy. They need to calm down and get grounded. Think of like a forest fire. It's just like spreading. It's just like I got to do all the things all the time. Their pulse is like trying to escape. It just fire of the stomach is too high. They're just burning through food. Maybe they got acid reflux coming up. It's just everything is like all the red flags. They're always irritated too, snapping at you, passive aggressive. Those are all indications that there's too much heat going on if they're not normally snappy and passive aggressive. Okay, so two things from the hive, and these are both. Let's start with royal jelly because that's easy to get. Royal jelly is amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like if the queen bee dies for whatever reason and they need to make an emergency queen, a female bee, a worker bee, will eat royal jelly and reverse her age. Like this is like bee magic. She will reverse her age and enable herself to give birth to a temporary queen. And that temporary queen will then lay like a real queen later. But it's the royal jelly that enables this. Queen bees are fed royal jelly exclusively. That's what gives them their fertility, their powers of fertility. No other bee has any sexual energy at all. They exist for different reasons. Only the queen has this. But royal jelly, while it's fed to other bees early on in their larval stage, you have to kill queen bees to source royal jelly. So it's definitely something that needs to be treated with respect. And I don't know how a lot of these companies are sourcing royal jelly. To go back to my fun little hippies from Portland, they have something called the Queen's Ambrosia, which is a royal jelly elixir. And I mean, this doesn't look like something you'd get at Whole Foods, but it's a little bit of royal jelly mixed with some other bee products. And so that way you get a little taste of royal jelly without having to decimate a lot of queens. And because they practice bee-centric beekeeping, they do it with a lot more respect for the larva. But you have these people who are farming queen bees specifically to kill them for royal jelly, and you don't know how they farmed them. You don't know where it came from. So just proceed with caution. It does require tremendous energy to produce this stuff, and it is magical, but it does come at a very high cost. So has high levels of collagen. It is known for anti-aging and beauty purposes. It does reduce systemic inflammation, boost fertility. It's just something that if you're going to use it, just be aware of the cost. The next thing is venom. Definitely proceed with caution if you're using venom. There's a company called Heal Hive that helps a lot of people with Lyme disease, autoimmune conditions. I have no affiliation with them, but I do know the work that they're doing. And they will set you up and show you how to have a little thing of bees and you sting yourself in specific spots. A small percentage of the population is allergic to bee venom. I wouldn't just go get stung. That's not ideal. I mean, I got stung right here and the scar is just now starting to go away, and that was like a year ago. But if you do get stung by a bee and you don't want to use the venom medicinally, which I would do under the watchful eye of someone from Heal Hive, use plantain. Just if you either have the dry plantain, you can wet it, like dampen it, or fresh plantain, chew it, put it on the sting, and just keep changing it out. It'll draw the venom out so you don't get all swollen and have an allergic reaction. But the venom itself does heal in a sense of like heals like. It causes inflammation to treat inflammation. This is a very touchy subject. The bee does die when she stings, unless you can somehow manage to get the stinger out of you and make sure she doesn't pull. So when she'll sting, because it's only female bees that have stingers, the female worker bees, when she stings you, she will pull and it'll pull her guts out. And you want to make sure you pull that stinger out right away, because there's a venom sac that will keep pumping venom into your body. You can decide whether or not this is something you want to play around with, but it has been known to help people who have like high anxiety, grief, depression, burnout, emotional distress. It's kind of waking yourself up to yourself. But again, you're messing with fire. So be very cautious. There was someone who died in Texas the other day. He was mowing the lawn and he got attacked by a swarm of bees. That is highly unusual, but you don't want to go looking for this unless you know exactly what you're doing. So safer options to go to the quantum world, we've got minimize artificial light, reset your circadian rhythm. You're doing too much if you have a heat excitation state. And so you want to do less. And for people who are overachievers, that's going to be hard to do. So it's kind of like taking your rest seriously, changing your lights in the evening to red light, maybe using red light, maybe don't use your phone past sunset. It's just trying to live like a human instead of a machine. That would be get into some ancient traditions in the winter, maybe, start a fire, sit in front, look at the fire. Like that's a good source of red light that historically has been used by humans for a very long time. So that is very healing. Try to see a sunrise and a sunset every day. Just slow down. So herbs. Incidentally, the herbs that you would drink in the summer, especially in the South, lemonade, for instance, those are really good. Watermelon is amazing for the heat tissue state, and the seeds in a watermelon, because you definitely want a seeded watermelon, not a GMO watermelon. Those seeds have high levels of vitamin B, so that's also very good. But you're looking for the sour taste, and a lot of these come from the rose family. So rose hips, rose petals, rose thorns in some instances are medicinal, but good luck sourcing that. Hawthorn, we've kind of already discussed for capillary congestion. Hawthorn is also a really good remedy for a broken heart, like energetically or physically. If you're having heart issues, it's like the equivalent of eating an apple a day is hawthorn. Passion vine and flower, it does grow in the South. It's a native plant. It's very good for people who just overthinking to the point that they never sleep anymore. That would be really good. Wild cherry, they're all over right now. Lemon balm. For lemon balm, you can use dried, you can. But I find that when you use it fresh, it tastes like candy. Like I never understood why herbalists were crazy for lemon balm because I'd only worked with dried. And I was like, I mean, it's all right. And then I had it fresh and I was like, this is amazing. So keep that in mind. Like if you can grow lemon balm, it is a mint. It will take over your garden bed. It's not hard to grow at all. Elder is the great opener. This is going to be your elder flower and elderberry. Don't go working with other parts of elder unless you really know what you're doing, because it is a poisonous plant. Like the roots are poisonous, the flower, not the flowers, the leaves are poisonous, the bark is poisonous, and the dose kind of makes the poison. You can use it. It has been used historically, but do not use it unless you know exactly what you're doing. But elderflower is perfectly safe. I think elderflower is actually better than elderberry in a lot of ways. If you have a lot of heat in your head, if you look at elderflowers, it looks like it's the top of the head. It's opening. Anytime you feel the slightest illness coming on, got a sore throat, you got a headache, you got a fever coming on, my go-to plant is elderflower. It opens the pores. What I'll do is at night, I will do either straight up elderflower tea, as hot as I can tolerate, or I'll mix it with yarrow and peppermint, equal measures. So for a French press, I'll do like either 2 tablespoons of elderflower, or I'll do 1 tablespoon elderflower, 1 tablespoon yarrow, 1 tablespoon peppermint. Let that steep 15 minutes, push down the French press, drink it as hot as I can, maybe add a little honey. And then you just bundle up for the night and sweat out whatever you got. And I swear it is just, it's amazing. I love elderflower. It's a pharmacy and a treat. I mean, it's really great. If you want to work with elderberry, that's really like anemia to prevent illness. Like once you're sick, elderberry is not going to do much for you, but elderflower will. Hibiscus, amazing. In the South, we have roselle. You can drink that as a tea. It's very sour and very cooling. When you hear sour, think cooling in small doses. Let's see, bitter, skullcap, motherwort. Those are motherwort's also very good for the heart. Skullcap is really great if you've got hormonal imbalances causing heat and excitation. So menopause or leading up to menopause, maybe look into skullcap. Cucumber, melon, those are all really good for the hot heat. Marshmallow, we've talked about chickweed. Linden is a beautiful plant. It's like grandmother medicine. You want the leaf and flower. It's like demulcent, like marshmallow root, so very hydrating and soothing, and it has this lovely floral taste. It has very nurturing grandmother energy. So if you've got like heat and excitation and you just wish you were a kid and you could crawl in your grandmother's lap, like maybe go with linden. And then red clover just is sweet. Sweet will also tame the heat. And honestly, a lot of people who have, they work themselves to death, they need a little sweetness. Okay, so yarrow we've kind of talked about. Yarrow moves blood very well. If you have a migraine or something, I like yarrow tea for that. It's also the best wound healer. You can use the plant itself, the powder. You can just, if you have a cut and it's bleeding like crazy, put yarrow tincture on it, it'll stop it. That is a must-have plant, in my opinion, is yarrow, especially for emergency situations where there's a cut or a headache or something. Like yarrow is the shit. So hawthorn we've talked about. Lemon water, if you've got heat excitation, lemon water will go a long way for you. Talks about watermelon, honeysuckle. This is what cleavers looks like. Gallium aperine. Turmeric is going to help drive down the inflammation of heat. Let's see. Okay, so here's lemon balm. Again, it's a mint. It has a square stem. Nigella sativa, black cumin seed, that was really popular during COVID for addressing inflammation, but just look at this leaf structure. It looks like fascia or cellular structure. It's going to help bring back the structure. Go back to heat melts this. So that rebuilds that. Something to think about. Passion flower, rose. Okay, and here's elder. It's not the best picture, but usually you'll see the flowers kind of go into like, it looks like the top of a head. Okay, all right. Cold, and then I think we just have wind and we're done. And then we can go into questions if anyone has them. When we look at the cold tissue state, it's not so much that you are turning into an ice cube, but I want you to think about an ice cube made with really dirty water. Like a kid just made a mud pie and you took that leftover water and made ice cubes. That's what's happening at the cellular level. You've got all kinds of junk in this ice cube that shouldn't be there. But because the tissues, or because the body has like lost its vital force, so to speak, it can't push it out anymore. It's just kind of like, oh, I can't do it anymore. Cold hands, feet, and skin, that's because blood can't get where it needs to go anymore. It can't warm the periphery. You've got a lack of sensation or response to stimulation because the nerves are just suppressed. Lack of perspiration, water, and oil. You are drying out because your body's just not producing water. Mitochondrial dysfunction has just like, it's tanked. So it's not producing that water. Any type of discharge is going to be dirty. I mean, we've talked about white and yellow, but here we're getting into like the blues, browns, blacks, dark colors that you're just like, that's not good. Lack of oxygen, coagulation. Anytime you see blue on the tongue, on the skin, I want you to think of elder. Elderberries are kind of blue, but if you see blue, you need elderflower tea. Like just that's that's the specific. You can get on elderberry as well. Don't eat raw elderberries, because if you eat too many of them, it will be like you just entered a cholera epidemic. It's gonna purge everything. You don't want to do that. But if you get like elderberry syrup or just elderflower tea, like I would work with that until that blue is gone. Sepsis is going to be purple, black, always bad. You're looking for a very pale or dark tongue. And you can have a green tongue. You can have brown, black coating. That's all indications of cold. Low, deep, slow pulse, and then it's going to speed up when that bacteria starts getting in there to clean up house, and it's going to cause a lot of heat because things are breaking down and not in a good way. So you want warming plants for that. But honey, I mean, everybody knows about honey. I mean, this is someone I just got. I'm always trying to support the local beekeepers in Louisiana. But all pure honey will crystallize. If your honey crystallizes, it just means it's good honey. It doesn't mean it's gone bad. If it never crystallizes, you might not have good honey. And one of the big problems with conventional beekeeping today is that they will take all the bees' honey and then feed them sugar water. So they don't have vibrant health. They're actually weakened. And that's partly why you have hive collapse disorder today, is because we're taking all of their food and giving them white sugar, which they would never eat in the wild. And we're expecting them to continue functioning as honeybees off of, trash. I mean, it's like if you ate McDonald's every day for a year and that's the only food you can get, I don't know if you'd feel so great and be like making this love and light kind of honey. But honey on its own is stored light, warmth, and nutrition for bees. But when you use honey yourself, it awakens what Rudolf Steiner called a hexagonal force. And if we go back to our slide, our image of structured water, in some circles, it's believed that structured water takes on that hexagonal shape, kind of like sheets of honeycomb. So we've got our little hexagons here, and that's what your structured water should be doing. And honey encourages that creation. So again, it's the chicken and egg situation. Wax is made from honey to store honey. This hexagonal force in the honey can help make the hexagonal force in your tissues. So we have something that, medicinally, it's a great cough syrup, works really well for kids, especially because they like it because it's so sweet. Joint pain, digestive aid. Like I said, I burned my finger so badly and I should have put honey on it. Sores, wounds, any kind, you just keep replacing honey and you can put a bandage on top of it. I find it works really well for bed sores too. It takes a single bee her entire lifetime to make half a teaspoon of honey. So do the math on that, on how many bees it takes and how much effort it takes to make the honey that we use. So that is the memory of the hive. It contains, kind of like our structured water contains all of our memories, all our knowledge. The honey also contains the knowledge of the bees and their energetic imprint. And so you want to get honey from a good beekeeper who is bee-centric, because then it's going to have a higher vibration. Those memories are going to be good. If you're getting super cheap honey from a grocery store from bees that were fed sugar water, they killed all of the male bees, which are like the sensory organ of the hive. They killed the queen every year to replace with some mysterious queen that they didn't know. That all puts bad memories into your body because the honey is storing trauma. And we don't want that. We want happy honey. So try to find from really good beekeepers that practice in a bee-centric way. Okay, so this is when oscillating between hot and cold can happen, when you have a cold tissue state, because you need to wake up the body. So sauna, amazing. You want to open the pores. You want to get the gunk from the ice cube out. Sometimes that might mean doing a little bit of cold plunge. I would not say just jump into a cold plunge. I think Carrie Bennett's practice of just putting your hands in ice cold water up and down, I think that would be a good way to just tell the body, oh, this is cold. My body feels cold, or the rest of the body feels cold. That's cold. Okay, this is hot. Okay, let's get back online. That's kind of what's happening there on an energetic level. cold and depression. So we want warming stimulants. Cayenne. As soon as you cook cayenne, it loses its medicinal value. But maybe you've heard, like if you're having a heart attack, you put a little bit of cayenne on your tongue and it helps to move the blood along and like kind of break up that clot. That's one way to do it. Sage and cayenne both, if someone's having a stroke or a heart attack, very beneficial. Sage will actually break down blood clots. Thyme, rosemary, these are our aromatics. When you brew them, make sure you put like a lid on top. Calendula, amazing. I mean, calendula is, if you have like fungal bacterial infections, calendula, it's an orange flower. You can put it in broths. You can make a tea with it. You can get the tincture. You can take the salve and put it on fungal or bacterial stuff on the skin. Amazing. Easy to grow. Wormwood. During COVID, I met so many people who were like holding their nose and chugging wormwood tea. Wormwood is the most bitter plant in the herbal materia medica. It's disgusting. The fact that people were drinking this stuff by the gallon is just like, oh my God, that's how desperate people got during the pandemic. Wormwood is so bitter that a demon in the Bible is named after it, or vice versa. I don't know, but it's extremely, extremely bitter. It also removes bitter experiences. So if you get a tincture of wormwood, the dose is 1 drop on the tongue. You could do that once a day or 3 times a day. But the idea of drinking this stuff by the cupful, let alone the gallon, is just like, it causes so much tension in my body because I'm like, that sounds awful. But that's what some people have been doing. I would recommend going with the tincture 1 dose drop and see how you do. Mugwort is a great remineralizer. It helps with like lucid dreaming. A lot of people use it for that. They drink it before bed so they can remember their dreams better. But if you're the type of person who's, you know, your spouse says you're sound asleep, but you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, I didn't sleep at all. I heard everything that happened outside. I heard this, I heard that. That's a sign that you should be working with mugwort because you're not actually sleeping all the way. You're not getting true REM cycles. So mugwort would be good for that. The piney stuff you're going to want to use in a tincture. Pine, cedar, juniper. Yeah, those all kind of remove bacterial toxins. Honestly, I don't have tinctures for those. I just use propolis because the resins are already in the propolis. So if you have cold depression, propolis is your go-to. And reminder, it's this. Now, if you can source propolis, you can just smell it in the jar. That's like if you have sinus problems, like smelling propolis regularly can also help with that. And the smell of the hive is actually very calming for the nervous system as well. Okay, who have we not discussed? I mean, some of these, you're going to have a hard time finding them. Arnica, I would get the salve and put it on bruises. You always want to treat a bruise. Bruises can turn into bad blood, and that causes all kinds of problems. Okay. Safflower. I find that safflower oil is really good for Raynaud's syndrome when the tips of the fingers turn stark white or even purple. You can rub that on there. Yarrow helps with that as well. I actually fixed my mother's Raynaud's by finally convincing her to get off of trazodone. So if you're on trazodone, that is a problem that it can cause. Fennel is delicious. If you're having trouble digesting meals, a cup of fennel tea after dinner can be very helpful. And it's also, even though it's a stimulating herb, I find that it's very soothing for the nervous system. Let's see, rabbit tobacco. You could work with rabbit tobacco as a tincture. I find that it's best as a smoke. So you could load up a pipe with rabbit tobacco and that helps reawaken the lungs. Echinacea, fun fact, is the original snake oil. It's actually a treatment for snake bite, and it was so good that people started making their own snake oil remedies that were fake. But echinacea was the original snake oil. It is very awakening to the body. A lot of people use it when they think they're getting sick, but it's as an immune booster, but it's a cellular awakener. Let's see. Rock rose, here you can get the flower essence for that. That's when you've just had such a trying time that you've shut down. Inula, elecampane, that's when you're coughing up green mucus. its signature is green. If that's happening, green, of course, is a symptom of a signature of cold. So you can get elecampane root and make a syrup. I don't know if you like the tea. It has a very strong smell. Some people are very averse to it, but you can get the tincture and just do 3 to 4 drops on the tongue 3 to 4 times a day until that green mucus clears up if you're coughing that up. Let's see what happened. Okay. All right. Heading into the end of the road here. Oh, oregano. Oregano will wake anything up. Um, and then wild bergamot or bee balm. It's also called sweet leaf in indigenous medicine. That does the same thing as oregano. It's just the American equivalent. Okay, goldenrod. Goldenrod is amazing for like cat allergies. If you have a lingering cough and cold you can't get rid of, it's everywhere in the fall. Everyone always thinks that goldenrod causes fall allergies, but it's actually ragweed that causes them, which is usually growing right next to it. It just ragweed has green flowers and goldenrod has bright yellow flowers. So everyone's like, it's that yellow flower. It's like, actually, no, Solidago would fix what ragweed is causing. They're kind of like the odd couple. They're a toxic duo. But goldenrod is great for allergies. It does wake up things. It's very sharp in flavor. So there's that. Okay. Ginger, really good. I just take ginger root, throw it in hot water in a blender, pulse it a couple of times, let it sit for a few minutes, strain it, add honey, boom, you got ginger tea. Amazing. Dried ginger is actually hotter than warm ginger. Than fresh ginger. So keep that in mind. Okay, last tissue state, and then we're done. So this is called wind because it's intermittent. It's symptoms that change constantly. You're like, sometimes I'm hot, sometimes I'm cold, sometimes I'm this, sometimes I'm that. That is they've associated that energy with wind, but it is the constrictive tissue state. So this is like, you're so tense, you don't even notice your shoulders are up at your ears, grinding your teeth. You're just like, oh, you're biting on yourself all the time. You're just like super tense. That would be constriction and you need relaxants. So nervous system, trauma can be stored in the structured water and in the fascia. We know this, and that can affect your nervous system. So, there's too much communication going on in the body. And a lot of times it's communication that's not even happening in the present. It's conversations and experiences that are frozen in time in the tissues of the body. And that's causing continued tension. Like if you have bad memories that are constantly coming up, wind and constrictive tissue state. Everything's stuck. Memories are stuck. Trauma's stuck. Tissues are stuck. It's not the same as damp stagnation and cold, which are types of stuckness. This is like an energetic stuck where you're just like, like I hate everything. I hate my job. I hate everyone around me. That's this tissue state. The pulse is actually going to feel very wiry, tense, obstructive. You're going to have cold hands and feet, but it's not because you're cold. It's because you're so tense, the blood can't get to where it wants to go. When you stick out your tongue, instead of seeing, cold hands and feet, we're going to be like, oh, that's the cold tissue state. You'll see a cold tongue versus a constrictive tongue. A constrictive tongue is you stick it out and you see it pulsing. You see it twitching. I've seen a tongue on a client that had completely turned over on its tip. If it's bent, like it's like, that's a sign that you're at risk of stroke. So that's tension that has actually caused like a right angle in the tongue. That's not good. You definitely need to address that and maybe get on sage to prevent a stroke. But any type of spasm in the tongue, like if you stick your tongue out in the bathroom mirror and you see it kind of like, that's not normal. That's this. So, if a cold draft sets you off, cold water, ice cubes, just like, that's this. Intermittent irregular gas and bloating. You could also go back and forth between diarrhea and constipation. Sudden changes in mood. I mean, just really think about the element of wind and how changeable it is. If you're embodying that changeability, that's what you have right here. Hiccups, reflux, nausea, vomiting, those are all signs of it too, but that's not going to be the case for everybody. One way to fix this is the hum of the hive. And obviously I don't have a prop for that, But in Slovenia, especially, they have these things called bee houses. And if a kid is acting up in school all the time, they send them to the bee house and they have to go lay down in the bee house. And you feel the hum of the hive, you hear the hum of the hive, and it calms your nervous system. And it's a spiritual substance. It's reconnecting you with a higher consciousness. And it's a form of sound therapy that's actually restoring the hexagonal force within the structured water. In the hive itself, it's a single tone made up of thousands, and it's considered a vibrational medicine. Bee houses are starting to catch on here in the United States. They are used occasionally for PTSD, trauma, veterans, schools, prisons, juvenile detention facilities. We're trying to get people back to alignment and center and the proper vibration in order to heal, and to also let go of trauma, to let go of bad experiences or anger. And the hum is a big part of that. The book, The Song of Increase, is a wonderful book about bees, and it does talk about this healing hum. I do know a couple of beekeepers that have started building these houses, and I really want one. So I'm hoping, one day in the future. But the thing that destroys our own internal hum, non-native EMF exposure, Wi-Fi at night, don't do that. It's messing up your internal hum. Let's see, my internet connection is unstable. Okay. So one way to increase this hum is to increase intimacy, cuddling, hugging, physical intimacy. They all build structured water. They release tension. If you don't have a significant other, just, cuddling with a pet, petting a dog also helps restore this hum. If you're in a very toxic environment, you're with people who just drive you nuts. That's another case of, problems. Okay, the tastes that heal this. We did say we were going to talk about agrimony. You can get agrimony as a tincture. You can also get it as a flower essence. I would recommend the flower essence. They work equally well. If you are in a toxic environment at work, agrimony is a really good herbal remedy for that. It helps especially with tension caused by hierarchy. So if you have a toxic boss, or you have middle management who's making your life hell, or you're dealing with a lot of obstructionism, indecisiveness, that kind of thing, agrimony kind of helps you figure out which way you really want to go. Do you want to stay in this toxic environment? Do you want to go? What do you want to do? Agrimony kind of helps you ground within yourself and deal with the tension. Agrimony as a plant kind of looks like, it looks very stressed out. So if you feel that way, like everything's grating and you just can't deal, agrimony is a really good herb. You can look for the Bach flower essence. I think it has a green label. I think it says it's speak freely, but it opens up kind of like the throat chakra kind of thing. So you can figure out what it is you really want to say. Like, who do you really want to be? What is it that's causing this misalignment, that's causing so much tension? So we're looking for acrid flavors. Kava kava is amazing. Instead of drinking alcohol in the evening, you can do kava kava. Get the root, grind it, and then it's like 2 tablespoons. I'll start with 2 tablespoons, maybe work your way up to 3. In a quart-sized mason jar, hot water, let it steep overnight or throughout the day, strain it, and then drink that in the evenings. You can warm it up, add honey. It does have a, as you drink it, you'll notice your mouth kind of going numb, and it's doing that to your nervous system. But I would not drink this more than 30 days in a row, and I would avoid it or only use it sparingly if you have liver congestion, because it can be a little tough on the liver if it's not functioning properly. Keep that in mind. Tulip poplar, we discussed a little earlier. That's in the magnolia family. It was that beautiful yellow flower that the bees love. That's another good one for wind and tension. Valerian, hops, catnip, peppermint, all great. Catnip is actually a specific for people who are scared to fly. So if you feel like you're hyperventilating before a flight, get some catnip tincture and just keep taking drops of it until you kind of chill out. Hops is really good for people who just can't sleep because they cannot turn their mind off. And then valerian and wild lettuce, you can take those together if you have really bad insomnia and like morning light and circadian stuff just isn't cutting it. That would be something to test, like 3-4 drops before bed, and just kind of see how it goes. let's see, blue vervain, extremely bitter. Blue vervain, like if you're making the tea, you need like the tiniest little pinch in a whole French press because it is so bitter you won't be able to drink it. And the bitterness is the medicine, so you don't want to mask it with honey, but it is amazing. And especially for men who are maybe dealing with erectile dysfunction, blue vervain is very helpful for that. So it can heal tension and cause a certain type of tension. So that might be useful. Let's see. So we talked about a lot of these. Chamomile is just like all around amazing plant. Can't go wrong with chamomile. It's known as the plant for babies of all ages. So if you know someone who's constantly whining and complaining, and acts like a child, give them some chamomile. It's, unless they have a ragweed allergy. I wouldn't use chamomile if you've got a ragweed allergy, but otherwise it's beautiful. Okay, we've talked about a lot of these. Passion vine, really good for sleep, especially if like your mind itself is like a spiraling, climbing vine. Really good for that. Vervain, yeah. Okay. Valerian root, elder is cooling, slightly stimulating. If someone's having night terrors, that's a different type of tension, especially children that are having horrible nightmares, night terrors. Elderflower tea is a specific for that. All right, we did it. Amazing. All right, let's see. How do I get back to you, Maura? I
I don't know.
don't know either. I'll just stop the share.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. That was so cool.
Awesome. And I had props this time. I'm very excited
Yeah, I
about
love it. Now I'll open up the floor. Does anyone have any questions here to ask Amber?
I just wanted to say I loved this presentation. It was fascinating. Amber, did you study Chinese herbs or a different type of herb?
I did Western herbalism. So in terms of Chinese herbalism, I do tongue evaluation, which is very similar to Chinese medicine.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah. But I mean, Chinese medicine is like a totally different language. I feel like I'm in like kindergarten for that.
Okay.
Opposed to Western medicine.
But I noticed you were talking about damp and cold. Is that also in the like American herbology or Western herbology
It
lexicon? Or?
is part of the Western tradition. So if you
Wow.
go back to Plato and Aristotle, they were talking about the four elements, the four states. It went into six because wind was added, which is very much like in Chinese medicine. But these things were kind of coming up at the same time. So Chinese medicine is thousands of years old. We can go back thousands of years. And when it comes to allopathic medicine, it started out this way. Like Galen is the father of modern medicine, and Paracelsus, I think is how you say his name. They were doing all of this stuff with tongue evaluation and tissue states, but it kind of split off at some point. I think it was before the Rockefeller takeover.
Okay. I know that everything went crazy then.
Even up in the 19th century, and I remember this as a pediatrician, not as a pediatrician, when I would see the pediatrician as a kid, I was never a pediatrician. But they would look at your tongue, and they don't do that anymore. Nobody looks at your tongue.
Yeah.
I have to go to the acupuncturist and be like, look at this.
Yeah. Look at my big fat tongue. Anyhow, I loved this and I have to go now, but I'm so glad I tuned in for it. Thank you so much. It was a great Friday. Take care.
Oh, you too. Have a good weekend.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Kathy.
Yep.
Thanks, Amber. I really enjoyed. I missed the very beginning, so maybe you answered the question, but I definitely want to listen to this all again. But as I'm listening, I'm thinking, but I kind of relate with this one, and I kind of relate with that one. Do you have to be one certain type, or can you have certain things going on, different things going on in different parts of your body?
So you can have multiple tissue states at the same time.
Okay.
So you can have damp stagnation in some areas of the body, and you have damp relaxation in other parts of the body. You can have cold that's causing heat. You can have heat that's drying you out, and you can be dried out, which is causing heat. So it's kind of like everybody is different. This goes into like bio individual care. but understanding what's the root cause. So if you've dried out because you're so tense, we wouldn't necessarily treat the dry, we would treat the tension, because then the body could heal the dry on its own. It's kind of like, you know, if you're being strangled, you don't want to be like, I need an oxygen mask. You're like, get these off of my throat.
Sure.
So, again, violent examples are memorable.
Yes, yes. Well, and I wonder, because I have been diagnosed with autonomic dysfunction, which is, I'm like, okay, so there's the tension and you're working too hard and you need a lot of fluid, but you can't keep the fluid, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, some of this is making sense if I re-listen to try to get at some of it.
Well, when there's too much heat, it does the same thing as a lot of different tissue states, because it'll dry you out, because basically, I mean, this isn't exactly what's happening. It's just a metaphor, but you're like boiling the water in your cells. So it's turning into a vapor. Like if you have too much heat in your liver, it starts affecting your brain. And so the ancients would call it the vapors. The vapors were causing the brain fog and all these things, but the root of it was the liver. So if you've got all this dysfunction and things aren't running as they're supposed to, you could have tissues that just aren't holding water. The water isn't able to hold on to energy, and it just causes this domino effect that then you could end up being very dry, but we have to treat the heat first. So if you have something like a histamine overload or autoimmune stuff, you would try to heal or cool down the heat first of all. And I mean, summer's the perfect time to really do that, because watermelon's in season. You can do like lemonades. I mean, you could do herbal cooling herbs, that kind of thing. And what I'll do after we leave here is I'll send 2 documents to the communities page. So I have one, which is a tissue state study guide, which kind of has a lot of the information that we covered here today, just not the bee stuff. It's just the herbs. So you'll have like okay, I have the heat excitation tissue state. These are my herbs that I need to play with. What's going to be the easiest one for me to access or to get my hands on? What's growing around me, that kind of thing. And then the other one I'll do is a very funky little poetry book I made based on all the different herbs and what they do. So if that poem resonates with you for a specific herb, that might be the herb for you. It was kind of like my interpretation of like Chocolat, the film. I was like, oh, what would be a really cool way to like spin the wheel and pick an herb? And it's kind of like it encapsulates the essence of that herb. So if you're like, I'm really torn between these 3, you can go to those 3 poems and be like, oh, okay, that's the one for me. So it kind of helps you steer yourself a little bit more, because there's thousands of herbs. Like I don't even know all of them. I would say I know 57 really, really well. Like we went to school together, like we know each other. But there's probably about another 20 that I'm like, we're acquaintances, but there's no way you can learn every herb and everything that it does. It's just finding like the 1 to 3 that really bring you joy and happiness and feel like they're the right one for you, and that they're helping you in this healing journey without making you feel like, oh, I gotta go drink this now. Like, let me, hold my nose and chug this down. It's like, no, it's like at the end of a stressful day, you want something that you can sit with, and it's like, oh, everything feels okay. Like I'm gonna get through this day.
Yeah.
Be all right.
You gave me some hope when you said you can drink as much isotonic as you want. I mean, that's I'm buying the keton hypertonic and making isotonic, and then like, I, how much do I have to drink to see a difference? And so I'm wondering.
It gets pretty pricey. It does.
Oh yes, it does. And I'm wondering though if it's because I can't absorb it. It's just I'm too dry.
I mean, I'd have to see your tongue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where if you're not absorbing water, and I have heard this a lot from people in quantum, that they just can't get hydrated enough. They feel like the more that they drink, the less hydrated they feel. And I think it's a problem of you're not retaining it, or where you are retaining it is in the wrong spot. So, some people drink insane amounts of minerals and they don't feel a difference. And if that's the case, then the tissues themselves probably can't hold the minerals or absorb them. So if you have a lot of heat going on with an autoimmune dysfunction, your tissues are probably drying out.
Well,
So,
and it's an autonomic dysfunction isn't really autoimmune.
oh, I'm
It's
sorry. I
yeah,
misheard. I'm sorry.
yeah, that's okay. It's just that the things that your autonomic nervous system is
Yeah.
supposed to take care of goes awry.
Yeah, that's
And
a big from what I was saying.
yeah,
So-
much more stable since I've been doing all of the quantum work, much more stable, but we
Mhm.
still got miles to go.
So okay, in that particular case, you would have a tension situation that's either causing dryness, because tension, water can't get where it needs to go. So either the tissues themselves have just broken down, so they're not holding water, or they've dried out because the water couldn't get to it.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, again, a domino effect. If it starts out with tension and then it blocks off water, you have dryness. Or, okay, no. If you have so much tension that all of a sudden the levees break and then you have erosion, which is damp relaxation, you're not holding on to water. Then you're going to dry out, which then causes dryness and atrophy. So really you need to address the tension first, and those would be your acrid herbs. Those are the ones to chill out. And then also address the damp relaxation. The interesting thing is that astringent creates tone for the tissues, which means that it's kind of like tensing them back up. But until you deal with the underlying tension, you can't actually fix the flaccid tissue, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So where do you start?
I would start with the wind constrictive tissue state. Those would be like catnip, valerian, vervain. Who else did we talk about? I'm trying to think of all the
That,
actors.
no, that's good. That's good. And I remember from before I even was diagnosed, I loved catnip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had hired some gardeners and they pulled up my catnip. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I was so upset. But I'm getting ready to plant some more if the cats haven't actually attacked it. But catnip is a wonderful ally, especially for tension. And it's too, if you have tension in the gut too, that's another good ally is catnip.
Yes, I do. Yeah, because I have all the gut stuff and have had all kind. Thank you, Amber. This was
Yeah.
really delightful. Thank you.
I would get the tincture of catnip and try like 3 drops on the tongue, like 3 to 4 times a day. And if you feel like a surge in tension, like you could add the agrimony flower essence and see how that works. And you could also get the vervain. Do you have tension in your neck at all?
Oh yes, very tight neck and
Okay,
shoulders.
so tension in the neck and shoulders would be vervain. So you can get the catnip tincture, and you can get flower essences of agrimony and blue vervain. Agrimony will help minimize the tension. Blue vervain will address the tension in the neck and shoulders. And that's the Bach flower essence. You can find it at any health store. Flower essences, when I first learned about them, I was like, that's ridiculous. Like there's no plant material in them. It's the energetic signature of the plant. And I thought it was nonsense. And then I accidentally slammed my niece's hands in a door, which like I did not know, in my defense, that she had her fingers on the like where the hinges were. I don't and anyway, so this was her first time she'd ever been injured. She was looking at me with this look of betrayal and I didn't know what to do. And I gave her 3 drops of Rescue Remedy flower essence. And she immediately, like it was immediate. And I was like, oh, she just calmed down and we were able to put a poultice on it and everything was fine. But like I took that experience and then I felt extremely impatient. I was waiting for some results to come in and I was just like so angry and aggravated. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the impatience flower essence. And I immediately calmed down. And I was like, this is interesting. And so I started playing with all these flower essences and now I'm a huge fan because they don't interact with any tinctures or pharmaceuticals. They're easy to source. There are infinite numbers of flower essences, but I find that the core Bach flower essences, which you can find at pretty much any health store, are just so beneficial and they're easy to take. You can put them in any beverage you drink. You can put them directly on your tongue. And in a lot of cases, they work as well as the tincture and the tea, which is just crazy. But again, it's your structured water is taking on that signature and listening to the message.
That is great. And I'm hoping that if I can get some of that down, then some of my sinus drainage, I'll be able to drain better.
That could be a tension issue too.
Yeah.
You could try an herbal steam of your face and breathe in calendula. and that'll open up the sinus passages, or goldenrod. You can even take goldenrod tincture and put it in a steam and breathe that in, and it'll open up the sinuses and help that drain.
Well, I'm so thankful this is recorded because I can listen again and take notes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy.
I have some questions.
Okay.
It was
shoot.
like, well, you literally answered the one about the flower essence, because I was going to ask you about that. So you already answered that. I guess it relates to, I have a couple actually. It's kind of in the same world of like the energetic medicine. So you mentioned bee venom.
Mhm.
Now, what about like the homeopathy remedy? Was it Apis or APAS?
Yeah, I think it's Apis.
Apis, that's it.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
know
like,
what I'm, oh, go ahead.
no, that like I would love to hear you kind of riff on that, because I feel like that is the energetic.
That goes into the old alchemical quote that the dose makes the poison. So homeopathy is working with poison basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
in very, very small doses. I am not a homeopath. It's something that eventually I'll get to, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like it's a natural layer for all.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into the poisons yet.
Yeah.
I mean, some plants I work with, like elder, you have to know what you're doing because parts of it can be poisonous. And there are people who they'll make salves with elderflower leaves and put that on bruises. And like I was saying with blue, that can be beneficial. But for some people, like I don't want to risk it, like giving them a poisonous leaf.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in South Louisiana, especially because we have sunstroke, people take the elderflower leaves and put it under their hat. And that works for sunstroke, oddly enough. I don't understand why, but
cool.
it does. But in terms of bee venom, I know a great herbalist and homeopathy practitioner. Her name is Dr. Elderberry.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, that's not your real name. And it is.
It is. Yeah.
But she is amazing. And I recommend her to everybody because she's just a geek over all the diagnostic stuff. I deal with a lot of the more macro patterns of how nature heals us. But in terms of homeopathy, like you can start with, I think it's the smaller the dose, the stronger it is in homeopathy.
Yeah.
But if you want to mess with the idea of bee venom, yeah, that would definitely be the safest way to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. That's what I was like wondering, like, cause I feel like it's like my daughter and my husband, like from that personality you described, like heat, like that's like them, like kind of like never stop, go, like really, really high energetics. But yeah, that one definitely resonated with me. And then my other question was, I guess this is like about the scar tissue you mentioned. So like I do have lots of scarring. So like what would be like a good would you put stuff topically on like the scar tissue, or like older scars, or would that still be like an internal thing?
I don't know if it would get through the skin at a well enough
Topical.
to get into the fascia. I mean, you're looking more at manual work on the fascia to try to break up that scar tissue. They're in the other room, but I recently bought these weird little fascia tools. I was like, let's see what this is about. And you put like oil on your skin, you just beat yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not quite convinced yet.
Yeah.
But I know some people have been getting like certain types of water injected into scar tissue, and that's been working.
Yeah.
Bee venom has historically been used for scar tissue. So I would look at Heal Hive. It's kind of an expensive program because you have to go through an education module first, and then you get your little box of bees. Whereas I could just go mess with them outside.
Yeah.
But I mean, even going to the hum of the hive, like bees that are happy don't typically sting. It's bees that are freaked out that sting, or they're really aggravated, or like their queen has died. Then they get really agitated because they know they're all about to probably die.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like your heart's just been ripped out, like Indiana Jones or something when the queen dies. So not a good situation. But the energetics of a bee that is giving venom almost willingly with Heal Hive, if I can even say that. I feel like because it's not from a place of fear, it's probably a better energetic medicine, even for scar tissue. But their research on Lyme disease has been fascinating. I mean, if someone does have Lyme disease and they come to me, I recommend teasel, which is the herbal remedy for Lyme. It's the herb that reminds your body what it means to be whole and healthy. So that's something to play around with before you get into the venom boat. But
Yeah, no, that's really cool. One other question. Well, because you mentioned like the bee medicine, quote unquote. Like, do you have like a brand, or like would you, maybe you could email that us to put that in the video, just to like kind of recommended tried and true brands
well,
that you
I
like?
love Pixie Mead. I mean, they're
Oh,
totally like gypsies. Like
yeah.
they're out there, but they are the most bee-centric
Okay.
company I know of. So I know I'm getting a good vibration from their stuff. But the tricky thing with recommending bee products is you want
Yeah,
bee products from your area.
that's right. Okay.
And the other thing is that a lot of beekeepers, maybe they got into beekeeping because they wanted to save the honeybee. Maybe
Mhm.
they fell into it and this just became like their business and they're making a living. And I'm not trying to, I guess the word is begrudge anyone a living.
Yeah.
But the way that a lot of beekeepers are taught to me is horrific. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a while now. And like for instance, the culling of drones. Drone bees are the big males. They don't have stingers. They're gentle giants. They are the sensory organ of the hive. So in conventional beekeeping, they look at the drone, the male bee, as they're just there to eat the honey. And we want the honey, so kill them. Well, when you kill the drones, it's like losing all of your senses. The drones are the only type of bees that go from one hive to the next. They're actually welcome in other hives. They're not attacked or anything because in the mystical perspective of bees, it's like they sing the song of what it means to be a bee. So the drones are telling the larva what it is to be a bee as they're growing. And larvae, especially the female worker bees, they develop over a full rotation of like the sun. So it's like they get all the different light frequencies energetically. And the drones are kind of telling them like, this is your purpose, this is what you're going to do, this is what it means to be a bee. And that's like kind of woo in a sense, to steal from Carrie, but it's one of those things where in traditional or conventional beekeeping they kill the drones, so they don't have any senses. They kill the queens on a yearly basis and replace them. And what happens is in an emergency situation with a queen, if she dies, they'll make an emergency queen and then they'll have a real queen shortly after that. When you continuously kill queens and you have businesses that are in the business of making queens, you constantly have an emergency queen. So instead of having the real deal, you just have a band-aid. So it's like you go to buy a car and you get a cardboard car that only lasts like a year and you're like, why did it die? It's like, well, it wasn't made with metal, it was made with cardboard. So that's kind of what's happening. And so a lot of beekeepers don't even know that a queen in the wild will live. I feel like I'm like from Blackfish. I'm like in SeaWorld, like they're dorsal fins. But it's like a queen in the wild will live 5+ years and she lays 2,000 eggs a day. So if you keep putting in, it's like you're constantly getting a heart transplant every year. Eventually, you're gonna just die. Like the body will reject that organ and then it just collapses. And that's where you're seeing hive collapse.
Yeah.
I don't even remember why I started this rant.
It
I'm
was
sorry.
just about like trying to find like, bee
Oh
centric
yeah.
products. And that's like
So
super helpful to understand.
yeah, and so Rudolf Steiner talks about the benefits of apitherapy and specifically honey. He talks about a situation where these orphans were very malnourished and they were fed a
Mm.
diet of milk and honey, and
Yeah.
their malnourishment was repaired. They were healed by a diet of milk and honey. Um, and that's honey that has a high vibration. And so we're getting into kind of it's
Yeah.
definitely not allopathic territory when we're talking about bee medicine because you need healthy, happy bees to be a healthy, happy person healed by
Yeah.
bee medicine.
Yeah.
And, in the state of Louisiana, there are very strict constraints on what kind of hives I can have.
Mhm.
There's a really interesting guy. I cannot think of his name right now. I'm such a terrible person. Michelle, it's Apis mellifera, but he's bringing back natural beekeeping techniques in logs because bees are actually tree dwellers. They don't like to be near the ground. They like to be high up in the trees. They find a hollow tree log and they make their house in there. And I mean, if you can see if I can put these together. Like the comb, actually, you can kind of see the gap. Like they're looking for ventilation. Like they make their house a certain way so that it pairs up and they can actually get air through a certain way. Depending on the climate that they're in a lot of these hives, the bees don't get to make their own comb. It's in little square rectangles because it's easier for harvest of honey. And so the bees don't actually get to be themselves. But I mean, I have a top bar hive that lets them build out their own comb, but then I had to go out of town for 2 weeks. And what did they do? They glued the comb together. And I'm like, no, I can't pull it up. So, I mean, it's inconvenient for the beekeeper to let them be, wild bees basically. But it's better for their health. And my hive, I don't have any hive collapse. So that's something.
No, that's super helpful. Anna or Sarah, do you guys have any questions?
Putting people on the spot.
I know. I feel like this is such a great opportunity. Hey, Anna.
Hey,
Hello.
I was just listening and multitasking.
Okay.
So I missed the first part of the session. I don't really have any questions, but I just want to take a moment to say thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, strawberries just came out here where I live,
Oh,
and I just
nice.
couldn't. One of the farms actually produced some really great strawberries, and they're like the first, and I just couldn't resist. So I've got a bunch of dirty carrots and really fresh strawberries from the farm.
Oh,
Yeah. I do have a follow-up to what Mara asked around bee products. Are there questions that, like, when we're at local markets or talking to beekeepers, like other questions to ask without annoying them, I suppose, like about their bee practices so that we can make a better choice about what honey we're purchasing or
Yeah.
or propolis or bee pollen?
Yeah, I mean, good questions to ask are, do you let them build out their own comb? Do you treat with any chemicals? Like that's a big one. So varroa mite infestations in different regions, that's a big problem for them because the hive is weak. And you wouldn't have an infestation of a parasite, kind of like the cold tissue state that we were talking about, like that welcomes in parasites because the tissues are dirty and weak. So things come in to eat off the dirtiness. When you have infestations of varroa, a lot of the times they use chemical treatments. That would be a problem for the honey. You definitely don't want that. What do they feed them? Do they feed the bees honey or do they feed them sugar water? There were some bees, I think they were in France. They got confused. All they'd ever been fed was sugar water. And so they went and harvested sugar water from a candy factory. And so when they pulled the comb out, it was like multicolored. They were like, what is this? And it's because the bees had gotten their wires so crossed, they were just going looking for sugar. They weren't going for nectar. And so that would be something to watch out for. You don't want like Skittle honey.
I didn't even know that that was being done. So I suppose like I didn't know that we were feeding bees sugar water.
Yeah.
So though even the smaller places will do that. Or is it really
everybody's
dependent?
different.
Yeah.
It's, like there are some, like I'll buy honey from Whole Foods. I mean, I will get raw honey. I go through honey like crazy. Like I can't, especially because I make so much herbal medicine with it that I can't really keep up. But I try to buy from small beekeeping operations that I know that they care very much for their bees. That's not always a perfect situation, but I would say that the most important question is, do you feed sugar water or do you feed honey? Or sugar cakes is another one. In
Okay.
certain situations, especially if you're in a cold region, if they think that the hive is weak, they might do a mix of like confectioner sugar. They'll make a fondant, but that's emergency purposes only. That's okay, I think. If the bees are gonna die if they don't get that, if it's freezing temperatures and you can't give them honey. And Spikenard Farms, actually, if anyone wants to look, I'll put it in. They're in Virginia. They do something called BT. They might be able to recommend beekeepers to get stuff from, but it's very tricky because I even went to go meet with a beekeeper to get a new hive that was made out of cypress for South Louisiana because it is humid and that humidity eats through wood like you would not believe. So it's like, you know what? the old people always went with cypress. Hi, Pip. Sorry. I'm gonna get a cypress hive. And for some reason, this thing mildewed on my porch. And I'm like, this needs to live outside. And I know that Louisiana is a very opportunistic place. So I don't know if I just kind of got like cheated somehow and this wasn't cypress. But it's really hard to figure out. Once you find a good beekeeper, just stay loyal to them over this stuff.
Yeah, I have a couple favorites, and I think they just so deeply resonate with me that I just keep going back. And
Yeah.
I think it's but every time I try to ask a different question to learn a little bit more about the bees and the beekeeping and the hives and stuff like that. So I'll have to
Yeah.
start a question about the food and that because I feel like they give really good information too about like the local environment. When you go to a farmer's market and you find someone really small who kind of just does like bee
Yeah.
stuff, like then they're like a lot more mindful about the health of the bees and what's going on. You mentioned the humming of the hives. I was curious about that. Is that from a nervous system regulation? Is that listening to the humming, or is that like
It's like listening and feeling it.
and feeling the vibration of it?
So, I mean, I don't know if it's a myth or an old wives' tale, but supposedly like beekeepers live a really long time because they're constantly interacting with this vibration. We'll see how long I last. But bee houses or bee huts is that you get into like a little house and it has beehives in the walls. And it causes like you're not interacting with the bees. They're just in the walls of the hive or in the floor of the hut that you're in. And you lay on top of it and you can experience the vibrations of it. There's actually someone on Instagram who just got a bee hut. Like I think her husband made it for her. I need to get on mine to do that. Let me see.
Oh my gosh, that sounds heavenly. I've never heard of it, and I was just curious. But when I'm like at times I've been on some sustainable farms here in my area and in the flowers, and the bees are just so happy, but they buzz differently. They sound and they feel so good sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm dysregulated, that like I can also sense like a little bit of attention, but like I was like, oh, the sound is so like it just kind of vibrates through. And I wasn't quite sure if when you said a house, if that meant you were sitting within the bees, or it sounds like they're in the walls and under the floor and you're kind of feeling and hearing the vibration. That's cool.
You can sit next to a hive too and feel that sound therapy. What was I gonna say? Like when you do hive visits to your hive, you can tell based on the sound of the hum if they're happy, if they're mad, if something bad has happened. Like you can hear it, like you can hear and feel it. You can put your head or your ear against the hive and you can like hear the hum and you know a lot just based off of that. If like the queen has died, it's just like this sorrow that you hear. It's if they're super happy and productive and everything's good, it's like this really uplifting vibration. So I mean that is true. Like you feel a difference around them. It is very much an energetic medicine, and that's the reason why we talk about getting honey in your area for allergy support, but it's also in quantum. It's like you want to eat food that's sourced from the light that you're in. So that's also true. But they're on the same energetic space as you. So they're working with the plants in the area, those plants and the minerals in the soil and all of that. They have mapped all that out. So they know more about the environment that is then stored in the honey. And so you're also getting those energetic signatures of your area. So it's not just the allergen component, it's an energetic one as well.
I feel like that's almost where I get the benefit more so from. Is when I consume. And for a while, I couldn't really consume a lot of things. And as I got stronger and healthier, I found I started to crave more things that were kind of in my environment, getting the same light signals and the honey and the bee pollen. And they tasted so good and so nourishing and so supportive. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing all this information today.
Yeah. No, the bees always end up being the star of the show.
Yeah.
I just put in the chat, I actually bought this CD. It's like, oh, I got the download. It's a bee song and it's like,
Oh, cool.
and yeah, and they put it with water and they like, you just like play the music to your water and it structures the water. So check it out. Yeah.
I've been meaning to do some Veda Austin experiment,
Yeah.
like putting my petri dish on the hive. But then
Yeah.
I had like this whole ordeal because I was working with my beehive and I almost stepped on a water moccasin. And like
Oh,
I have my snake boots on and stuff because I'm like in the swamp.
yeah.
And so I like screamed out because the snake just sprung up and hissed at me. And there's this weird relationship between bees and snakes to begin with. Like
Yeah.
anytime the snakes come out, it means that the bees are about to swarm. Like they have this interesting
wow.
relationship. So I was like, oh my God, I was so spooked. So then we ended up getting like 6 cats. And it's just been chaos. I haven't gotten
Yeah.
around to doing much.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, this was like so great. And just to like reiterate, you work with people one-on-one and you can do tongue evaluations and just, yeah, let that be known too, because that's really a cool way to work with you.
I do.
Yeah.
I have a history of doing that.
Yeah.
But you know, right now I'm trying to work on really merging the ideas of bees, consciousness, and water.
Mhm.
So my website, I haven't really been very active, and I'm still on Instagram, and I've kind of been enjoying having a break from Instagram where I'm not posting anything. But then on the other hand, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to start posting again eventually. I'm doing all this stuff. I should probably share it. But I'm going to be talking more about this consciousness stuff and the relationship between bees and water and ourselves very soon. So maybe
Very,
I'll come back.
very cool. Well, we just so appreciate this. I took so many notes down and I feel like I have so many more places to dig into. It was just like really, really cool the way that you're connecting the dots here. And I love that. So we'll be on the lookout for those 2 resources as well.
Yes.
I love that you put together that. So thank you so much.
Mhm. Definitely. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I know it's hard in the middle of the day on a Friday. I
Yeah.
hope y'all have a great weekend.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Amber. We really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thank you. All
You too.
right. Bye, guys.